Good morning, church. Good to be with you today. We're in 2 Timothy chapter 1, and starting in verse 3, it says, I thank God, whom I serve with a clear conscience as my ancestors did, when I constantly remember you in my prayers night and day. Remembering your tears, I long to see you so that I may be filled with joy. I recall your sincere faith that first lived in your grandmother Lois and in your mother Eunice, and now I am convinced is also in you. Therefore I remind you to rekindle the gift of God that is in you through the laying on of my hands. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but one of power, love, and sound judgment. 2 Timothy, as we understand it, is the last letter that Paul wrote before he was killed in jail in Rome. And even in so writing, he is just pouring out love and care and compassion. And when we just think about the relationship that these ancient Christians had with each other, where they really were the only support network that they had for each other. They didn't stand up, if they didn't band together, if they didn't unite, they were going to starve to death. They would be lonely. There would be no companionship whatsoever. There was no such thing as government benevolence for them to fall back on. And so they were forced to, and it was their joy to do so, to encourage each other and to lift each other up. And Paul, exercising his authority as a pastor and his love as a friend, is trying to raise up this man, Timothy, so that he can continue on in the work that Paul had trained him up to do. And so he's reminding Timothy of some things. He says, well, one, his tears. They must have separated at some point, and Timothy was sad, rightly so. Many people cried many times over what Paul was going through. And he's recalling with joy this generational faith that Timothy is now part of. And so he gets this reminder, I remind you to rekindle the gift of God that is within you through the laying on of my hands. There's a lot of theology in that little bit of statement of how do the gifts of God come upon somebody? What role does the laying on of hands still play in the church? We're told not to be hasty with it, but could there be some role for us to be more actively praying with each other and more regularly praying for the gifts of God to be in us? Love, joy, peace, patience is the gift of the Spirit is love. But we also have to teach, to preach, to exhortation, the gift of being an apostle, a sent one. And so there's so many things that God desires to equip us with to do his work. I know it's true for me. I miss because I'm just so busy, and I neglect that time, and I neglect seeking out people who will continually pray over me and give me this reminder. Rekindle the gift of God that is within you. Sometimes we want to pray for more of what God has, but he's already equipped us fully. It's just a matter of understanding, one, the direction of our calling, and two, how he has equipped me to do that and to rekindle that. That was on Timothy. He said, Timothy, you do that. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but one of power, love, and sound judgment. Don't be afraid. Surely Timothy was frightened. He was, his spiritual father was in jail under horrible circumstances. He was in a hostile environment. It's easy for us to shrink back, but Timothy said, no, God hasn't given you that power, love, and sound judgment. Meditate on those 3 words today, church. See how God is drawing out of you to act in his spirit, in his character, with his wisdom. And what's left but for us to engage and to do as God has called us and directed you specifically to do. in the mission that he has for you. I love you, church. We'll talk to you soon.